I am recording this part right now, actually after I recorded the rest of the video, because a thought popped into my head that I maybe should make a little bit of a disclaimer or an advice. Before you leave a thumbs in one direction or another and leave a comment, watch the entire video through. Otherwise, considering that this topic is a really loaded one, you might do something that either does not reflect your own opinion, or you might actually turn out to look rather stupid. But now, moving on with the video. So, I avoided addressing the topic of feminism for a while now on my channel, because it is can of worms either way. No matter what kind of side you pick, you are in for a big one. But well, since recently a person I highly respect entered the discussion in a very widespread and popular way that got a lot of attention, I was like, well, this is as good a point as any to finally talk a little bit about my own point of view about, in this matter. And so yeah, this is a reply to Emma Watson talking in front of the United Nations saying, I am a feminist. She starts out with the one big issue I have with the term feminism. This is a big problem. Because she says that its definition is equality. It's equal rights. And of course, the first examples she delivers in the early part of her speech are about how women are not on an equal level to men in many aspects of life. And of course, what she says is true. Yes, there are many aspects in life where women get the short end of the stick. But of course, that's why I said somebody I highly respect entered the discussion, and Emma didn't disappoint. She addresses, a little bit later, she also addresses the other side of the entire issue, that men also have a lot of positions in life where they get the short end of the stick. And this brings me back to the term feminism in and of itself. The term was coined back in the days when women actually had an overall worse position in society. Nowadays there are still countries where this is the case in a very dramatic way, but in our civilized Western world, you cannot say that in general women are the gender or the sex, I believe gender is the right term. I always confuse it. In Germany, we have only one word for gender and sex and everything, so I'm a little bit... Please don't get hung up on using the wrong term at this point. So that both sides have their issues, and in the Western modern day world, in a lot of context, women are actually the ones with the upper hand. Originally, when the term feminism was defined as fighting for equality, equality meant that women pretty much had to gain rights in every regard, in every regard of social life. Talking about equal rights and talking about improving women's rights was a synonym. But nowadays this isn't the case anymore. So basically, we would have two choices. Yes, they would have, because there are certain individuals out there who took away one of those choices. But I guess this is later. The first choice is using a new term, a term that is not first of all, historically loaded, and second of all, a term that has not one of the genders in its name. It's not called maleism or humanism, it's called feminism. There is a certain focus on female rights, and I don't have a problem with women who say, hey, I particularly fight for women's rights, and them calling themselves feminists. That's something I can understand, and well, if you are a woman, it's of course closer to home for you to fight for women's rights. It takes somebody really big like Emma Watson to talk about both sides and fight for both sides simultaneously. But yeah, once again, the term itself, it carries a focus on the female side of things in its name, literally. And it also has a certain backstory which kind of confirms this assumption, which makes it a tricky term to begin with to use as the describing word for equality. That's why I consider myself an equalitarian or egalitarian, whatever the name is. So one who is not focused on one side of the issue, but somebody who looks on the entire picture. Pretty much what Emma does, but she still chose to call herself a feminist. And she was shocked by how bad this term has become over the years, or it's the reputation of the term. She literally asks the question in her speech, like, when did this become such a bad term? When or why turned this into this shunned expression? And the sad thing is that, especially over the last few years, the term feminism became such a bad word because by feminists who did not use it wisely, who used it to turn it into man-hating. And while, let's be honest, while they are a minority among the people who fight for women's rights as well as equal rights, they are a very loud minority. And they are a very penetrant minority and a very obnoxious one, and one you, when you are hanging out on the internet, one that slaps you in the face every now and then. And those people turned this already rocky beginning for the term feminism to be the term for equality into a minefield. We sadly got those people, those out there who are man-haters, who are not talking about equality, but using the phrase of equality to actually fight for women's supremacy. And this is a problem why the term itself became such a bad word. On the one hand, I can see why Emma did not address this, because this is was not worthy of her, of the UN, of the issue she was talking for. So on the one hand, I can see that why she did not address it. On the other hand, why she did a lot of research according to herself, and she is very involved. So I cannot believe that she is not aware why the term took such a turn for the worse. And of course, beyond that initial bumping stone, by picking up the definition and saying, hey, the dictionary definition is equality. Beyond that, I could pretty much agree with most you said. Yeah, there are certain issues women are still in an inferior position, and this has to change. This is not equality. And then she addresses that there are also many, many issues for men. And yes, I agree again. There are two sides of the entire medal. So when you realize there are two sides, why stick to the term which is in and of itself a bit exclusive, simply by the syllabi fem in the beginning? And when she was saying, man, this equality issue concerns you as well. Yes, of course it does. But put it under a different banner. Don't put it under a banner which has so much bad reputation earned by those loud idiots out there. But then again, a while back I saw a podcast with a feminist and a men's rights movement being guests by the amazing atheists, drunken peasants. I never expected to see a very impressive and intelligent discussion in the drunken peasants. I watched it and I was impressed. We got this tough, very rough-talking men's rights movement girl, and we got this very quiet and modest feminist girl. And in the end, this a little bit looking out for a good fight men's rights movement lady was like, girl, if every feminist would be like you, I wouldn't have a problem at all. This would all be, you all guys would be completely fine. You are an intelligent girl. You speak your mind. What she was saying, basically, was the problem with modern day feminism is that loud, obnoxious minority who is actually man-hating, who is trash-talking, and who is not looking out for actual equality. And she was like, you smart, intelligent feminists, you have to become more loud. You have to become the heard voice. You cannot let those lunatics take over your movement and turn it into this bad thing. Considering that podcast, I'd say maybe Emma Watson is a good example of a smart, intelligent feminist who is actually outspoken and doing something good for the movement. The only problem is, I can already see, because she was so smart and intelligent about it and impressed so many people, that now those bad feminists will come around and be like, we told you so, look at her, she just owned you, man tears, and all this other bullshit. Those are pretty much my thoughts on feminism, that it's mainly about the term. It's mainly about the term and those two forces within the movement who drive into different directions. The one force who is just giving it a bad name and using the definition that it is about equality as their free path to be everything but for equality and actually be stamping down on people. And there is another majority of the movement who is actually intelligent and fair, and often enough also feels that they should look out for both sides of the entire gender issue. As I said, I consider myself an egalitarian, and but basically I want the same as the good feminists like Emma. I want actually equality. If feminism goes through a renaissance and actually turns into an overall good force again, hey, more power to you guys. This is ANY saying opinion counts.